Michelle Hurn is a registered dietitian and ultrarunner with groundbreaking work on an animal-based ketogenic diet for anorexia and significant athletic achievements. Please welcome Michelle Hurn.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm one of those crazy ultra runners. I'm from Portland, Oregon, so when I was looking at the weather a couple weeks ago, I was like, oh, I can't wait to go to Vegas. It's gonna be so sunny and nice in the morning. So got a nice wet run this morning. All right, you guys, so my wife is a clinical lab scientist, and sometimes at her work, they do work presentations. And she listened to a presentation that was talking about mammograms, and everybody needs to get their mammograms. So she comes home and says, we need to get mammograms. And I'm like, oh, come on. We both just turned 40. We're young, we're healthy. You know, I've been doing a low carbohydrate diet now for almost 4 years, but I'm a good sport, so cool, I did it. Doing some work in long-term care right now. Up arrow goes, there we go. So I came home, I'll never forget this day, it was December 20th, came home from long-term care, you know, patients are annoying, nobody wants to stop drinking soda, eating sugar. This is my dog Jackson, I love Jackson. So every time I get home, it's like playing with him, you know, I love you, Jackson. My wife walked up to me, and I'm not being hyperbolic when she said 3 words that changed my life. She said, I have cancer. And it felt surreal. It felt like somebody had punched me in the chest. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. And what goes through your mind? Actually, if you don't mind, can I just have a show of hands of people, somebody you know in your life has been impacted by cancer? Would you see, that's a lot of us here, right? Never in a million years did I think it would be my wife. So what went through my mind in the 5 seconds after she said that? You know, I thought about this is one of our first pictures together when we were 24. We looked super young. And then falling in love. And then she's my biggest supporter. This was after a 62-mile race. She crewed me to the win there. And then, you know, I've been married before. I was like, I'm never getting married again. But then you fall in love. So asking her to marry me, getting married. And I also thought about, thank you. I've heard that cancer is increasing in young people. I was speaking at Low Carb USA in August of 2021 when I got a text. This is one of the women I ran with when I was in college. And she said, Michelle, the doctor says I have 2 weeks. She had a very aggressive form of breast cancer. I remember stepping out and saying, I'm flying down tomorrow. She said, my family's going to be here. Can you please fly down next weekend? Booked my flight to Houston. She passed away 3 days later. She was 36. You guys, in the United States right now, about 1,700 people die every single day of cancer. And so we've been doing a lot of research on the genetic mutations of cancer. So here was the deal. They thought, and this was in 2015, over $375 million was spent trying to look at the genetic mutations of cancer, trying to look at that DNA sequencing. And the thought was, if we can figure out what's going on, we can figure out how the DNA is moving, we can create these drugs that will prevent that. But I love what this woman says. She says, cancers are often quick to become resistant to drugs, typically by activating genes to bypass whatever cellular process is blocked. That's a really fancy way of saying, crap, these drugs aren't working. So it's failing, we're not getting better, more people are dying, not less. But what if we started looking at cancer on a metabolic level? Most of us here can appreciate just how powerful metabolic therapy is for diabetes, for heart disease, and now for bipolar disease, and what a great presentation earlier this morning on Alzheimer's disease. What if we treated cancer like those diseases? So I will forever be in debt to Dr. Seyfried. Cancer wasn't necessarily on my radar. When I wrote the book, The Dietitian's Dilemma, I was very confident about talking about type 2 diabetes, eating disorders, just how stupid the Academy of Nutrition is, but I wasn't confident on ketogenic diets and cancer, but I caught up real quick, you know. So let's look at what Dr. Thomas Seyfried says. He says that tumor cells, they show issues, they show metabolic maladies. Has shown that most tumors share the metabolic malady of aerobic fermentation that arises from dysregulated oxidative phosphorylation. That is a very fancy way of saying the mitochondria in tumor cells are messed up. They don't act like the mitochondria in regular cells. And this is across the board. This is in breast cancer, prostate cancer, liver cancer. In fact, even the American Cancer Society will tell you the rate of glycolysis in cancer cells is 10 to 15 times the normal of a normal cell. And what does that mean, and why is that important? I like this diagram. So this is a normal cell. So normal cells want to run glycolysis. They want to take glucose, and they want to bring it all the way down here. They want to run it through this through glycolysis so they can get all this energy. But tumor cells don't do that. Even with oxygen, they ferment. They go to lactate. So you get minimal amounts of energy, and that's why they're increasing their insulin. Keep the microphone. They're increasing their insulin receptors. So we know, Dr. Thomas Seyfried has actually been able to show cancer cells need fermentable fuels. And not just glucose. They will use glucose, but they will also use glutamine. And this is just another picture of that. They can actually use glutamine to make amino acids, lipid synthesis. They can do a few other things that can come into nucleotide synthesis. So if we know this, if we know that cancer cells need these things to grow, to multiply, why don't we eat in a way that minimizes those substrates? So this is a statement from the American Cancer Society. It says, lab studies have shown that metabolism of glucose, the main sugar used as an energy source in the body, is faster in cancer cells than normal cells. Great, we're all on the same page. We just said that, right? 10 to 15 times the normal rate. They go on to say, this fact is often misinterpreted by people who assume, incorrectly, that sugar in foods and beverages directly feeds cancer cells. Is anyone else confused? So no, I think we got it. And I want to make it very clear, and this is where people get kind of confused, like, oh, I eat a healthy diet. Your metabolism, it doesn't care if you're eating white table sugar, chocolate, or oranges. So if you have a cancer diagnosis, as somebody you know and love gets this diagnosis, it's very important that you follow a very specific therapeutic ketogenic diet. That's what we're going to be talking about. Is this idea particularly popular? No, this is a drink made for cancer patients. It's called Ensure Clear. There's a problem here. Do we see it's 52 grams of carbohydrates in this drink? That's more than a McDonald's hot fudge sundae. Also, shit ton of sugar too. Oh, I don't know if we can say that. A lot of sugar too. Not super popular. This is actually a meal that was, somebody texted this to me, a breast cancer patient. So, lots of carbohydrates. Glad they threw in a tiny bit of protein just to say they could. This is a nice message that I got. Anybody who's been in this space probably gets several of these messages. Hey, you should delete your RD credentials on your profile because you aren't one. And you never should. It's against the law to act like a medical professional. Sugar doesn't like you either. Too bad, because it's hella good. So unfortunately, and I'm not just trying to, obviously I crossed out her name. This unfortunately is the view of a lot of dietitians. If you've been to the hospital, if you've had a loved one in the hospital, the current dogma and the current kind of ideology is if you have a cancer diagnosis, you need to concentrate on getting enough protein and calories. Doesn't matter where it comes from, but you don't want to lose weight. That's bad. So eat whatever you want. You're sad, you have cancer, eat whatever you want. That is not going to work on a metabolic level. I actually heard somebody say, cancer, patients are already overwhelmed. Why in the world would you restrict food? Why would you ask them to follow this difficult diet? You want them to test ketones? Are you kidding me? But let me tell you something. We have very good data that a therapeutic ketogenic diet can shrink tumors. They do not metabolize ketones, or if they do, they don't metabolize them well. We also know that people who follow this way of eating as an adjunct to therapy get very clear margins. And let me tell you, when Karine is my wife, when she was diagnosed, once again, you feel like someone punched you in the chest. All of a sudden, you have no control over everything. How empowering is it to know, if you do this, this could improve your outcome. This is something you have control over. So I want to tell you, that's not a burden. That's a miracle. That is empowering. And I want to tell you just how grateful I am that I knew that. I knew that. I want everybody to know that. We have some great studies. Dr. Seyfried, I encourage all of you guys to look him up. He's got so many amazing published studies, and we're going to see more and more. My heart breaks. I actually heard him talk on a podcast, and he said, we will not see this as common practice until someone figures out how to monetize it. And that's kind of how it goes with a lot of things. But we can grassroots talk about it, share about it, and we're gonna make sure our loved ones know about it. I love this. So Dr. Seyfried did this with a dog. People are like, oh, a dog, okay, come on. We do studies on rats and animals. But it was a therapeutic, calorie-restricted ketogenic diet. And this dog has a mast cell tumor. You can see the tumor here. Just with that, no medication, no radiation, look at the tumor is gone. It's gone, and years later, it's still gone. That's fascinating to me. I will forever be grateful. The day after Karine's diagnosis, we immediately connected with a woman I had met at a conference who wrote the book, Keto for Cancer, and Karine was put on a therapeutic ketogenic calorie-restricted diet. We weighed food, we tracked it with chronometer. Thank you so much. Shout out to Keto Mojo. We tested her blood ketones every single day. I say we, I mean, she did. I was only there when she was really struggling. I was like, sorry, I can't have bread, sorry, it sucks. And it's so hard, you guys. We have met literally at this point, we have over 18 professionals. You have to see a surgeon, and you have to see an oncologist, and you have to get an MRI, and you have to do all these things. How many do you think talk to us about diet? One, almost. And her advice was that don't eat animal fat. And so I was about, Karine, nope, because we had decided, we already knew what we were doing, we weren't gonna argue, right? No, but I just, once again, my heart breaks that that's, when we have this evidence. And so, how is she doing? How's Karine doing? So, she has stage 1 ductal carcinoma. So she ended up, once again, immediately getting on the therapeutic ketogenic diet. They scheduled surgery, ended up having to have a partial mastectomy. They were hoping to do a lumpectomy, but it was too advanced. But I kid you not, when we went back to her surgeon, he said, I've never seen someone heal so fast. He said, it must be because you're young. You're healing so fast. And then we got a call from pathology, and they said, this is amazing. You got super clear margins. They told us initially she would have to do a month of radiation, and after the report, they said, you only have to do 5 days. So. Oh, yeah, this was a post I did. Just got back from meeting with my wife and our oncology surgeon. My God, your incision looks great. You're healing so well. So it's been very, obviously it's been very emotional for both of us. And, I kind of want to leave you guys with this. I'm happy to share any of my resources. I was thinking about this earlier. There's a saying that the Navy SEALs actually have that says, we don't rise to the level of expectation. You kind of think like, oh, if I prepare and I do all these things, if somebody expects something, I'm gonna be there. We fall to the level of our preparation. When we do something over and over, it matters. I mean, sometimes it's so easy to think like, does this advocacy matter? Does what I'm doing every day matter? Does me running matter? Does eating this way matter? It matters. Because I've eaten a low-carb diet, I was physically and mentally prepared to handle this because it was a lot. And because of this way of eating, I am completely confident that my wife will be in remission and will never have to do this nonsense again. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate your time. Is there any questions? I think I have like a minute or no?
Yeah, there's a minute. Actually, you've got a few minutes. Does anyone have any questions for Michelle?
Yes.
Oh, in the back, if you could repeat
them,
the question, yeah.
Yeah, that was a great question. Her question was, what about glutamine? So this is also where it's really important. This was something that was a little unusual for Karine and I. If you follow me online, I'm used to eating massive portions of animal protein. So it really had to be a protein-restricted diet as well, to where it was very, very high fat, because glutamine is obviously present in a lot of foods. They're working on glutaminase, like enzymes. Basically, there'll be medications that block the enzymatic action of glutamine, but at least for her, and even what we've seen in these studies that they've done, is it's just been the fact that you've restricted protein down to a ketogenic level. Great question. Yes?
I have sea level. I just want to stand up so you can see me. As I understand safety's protocol, it's like 900 calories after a 3-day fast.
Yeah, so Dr. Seyfried has a very specific protocol, and some people.
My question is how low can you go with 900 calories
Sure. So his,
Drop down, I mean, when do I stop?
that's a great question. So his question is, the protocol that Karine used and that a lot of people are using is a calorie-restricted ketogenic diet. So his question was like, oh my gosh, like, how long can I go? Like, especially, and they do recommend fasting, and it's different for every person. So you're obviously very lean. I think it kind of depends on how, you know, what are you coming from? Like, are you a little bit obese? Are you normal weight? Are you lower weight? Yeah, just specifically you. I can tell you, I don't know medical advice here without a signed waiver. No, just kidding. Honestly, I don't know, but I would have to defer to whoever your professional is. But I would imagine, you know, you could go for a relatively long time. There was a really good study that people who were doing ketogenic diets, I'm not saying fasting for a really long time, but doing a calorie-restricted diet, it prevented cancer cachexia. Like the ketone bodies actually slowed down protein breakdown. So, you're welcome. Yes. Yeah, that's a great question. So she asked what kind of diet was Karine on before her cancer diagnosis, and we both followed kind of the standard whatever diet through most of our 20s and 30s, and then like 2019 is when we both switched to a low-carb diet, you know, very high animal protein. She probably was about 50 grams of carbs or less, but yeah, we never measured ketones, so. And that's another good question. I mean, I've had people say like, God, I feel like I ate healthy, or I feel like I did this. Cancer is a game changer. You have to be in therapeutic. I mean, if you want to, in my opinion, you really want to make sure you're in therapeutic ketosis. So you really want to make sure protein is, you know, moderate, fat is very high, and carbs are very low. It makes sense, in my opinion, to have an expert kind of get you started and guide you through that, and then to test your blood ketones.
All right, I think we'll have to wrap it there.
Okay,
thank you
thank you.
so much
Thank you,
again,
guys.
Michelle.